What if I told you that some old pennies sitting in your drawer could be worth hundreds of dollars? I've got 4 incredible coins here from different countries and different eras, and one of them is worth more than all the others combined. In this series, I'm breaking down each coin, showing you exactly what makes them valuable, and teaching you how to spot treasure in your own collection. Let's dive in. Now, 1945 is one of the most significant years in world history. World War II ended, and this little penny tells an important story about that era. The Lincoln wheat penny, also called the Lincoln cent, was designed by Victor David Brenner and first released in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure, breaking from the tradition of allegorical figures like Lady Liberty. The obverse shows Lincoln's profile with the motto, "In God We Trust," above his head, Liberty to the left, and the date to the right. Brenner's design captured Lincoln's dignified, thoughtful character beautifully. It's arguably one of the most recognizable coin designs in the world. The reverse features 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. This design was used from 1909 to 1958, which is why collectors call them wheat pennies or wheaties. But here's where 1945 gets interesting. To understand its significance, we need to talk about 1943. During World War II, copper was desperately needed for ammunition production, bullet casings, shell casings, you name it. So in 1943, the U.S. Mint did something unprecedented. They made pennies out of zinc-coated steel instead of copper. These 1943 steel cents are grayish-silver in color and magnetic. They're fascinating collectibles and quite valuable in nice condition. But they weren't very practical. The coating wore off easily, they rusted, and people confused them with dimes because of the silver color. So in 1944, the Mint switched back to copper, but with a twist. They couldn't use new copper, so they melted down spent ammunition shell casings from the war effort. These shell case pennies were made from 1944 to 1946, and your 1945 penny is one of them. Think about that for a moment. The copper in this 1945 penny might have been part of a bullet casing fired in combat during World War II. It could have been at D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, or island hopping in the Pacific. After the war, that brass was collected, melted, and turned into pennies. How incredible is that? The composition of 1945 pennies is slightly different from pre-war cents. They're 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them a slightly different color, often appearing more golden or yellowish compared to the redder pre-war pennies. In terms of value, a typical circulated 1945 wheat penny is worth about 15 to 50 cents. Not a fortune, but more than face value. In uncirculated condition with original red color, values jump to $5 or more. And if you find one graded MS-67 or higher, we're talking hundreds of dollars. There are 2 mint marks to look for on 1945 pennies. Philadelphia, no mint mark. Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. The mint mark, if present, is located below the date on the obverse. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion pennies in 1945. That's billion with a B. Denver made 266 million, and San Francisco added another 181 million. With such high mintages, 1945 pennies are abundant. But don't let that fool you. Finding them in nice condition is still challenging. After nearly 80 years of potential circulation, most have significant wear. Historically, 1945 was monumental. Germany surrendered in May, ending the war in Europe. The atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August, leading to Japan's surrender and the end of World War II. The United Nations was founded. The world was transitioning from war to an uncertain peace. Your 1945 penny circulated during this pivotal time. It might have been in a soldier's pocket when they learned the war was over. It could have bought a newspaper announcing victory. These pennies are tangible connections to that generation and their experiences. For collectors, wheat pennies are fantastic starting points. The series runs from 1909 to 1958, spanning 50 years and offering plenty of affordable options. Key dates like 1909 SVDB, 1914D, and 1931S are expensive, but common dates like 1945 allow you to build a collection without breaking the bank. Errors and varieties exist for 1945 pennies too. Look for doubled dies, where parts of the design appear doubled due to die manufacturing issues. Off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and lamination errors also occur. Some 1945 pennies have been found struck on dime planchets. Imagine how valuable those are. Here's a crucial tip. Never clean your wheat pennies. Original surfaces, even if dark or toned, are preferred by collectors. Cleaning strips away the natural patina and can leave microscopic scratches that significantly reduce value. If you find a dirty wheat penny, resist the urge to polish it. Grading wheat pennies requires practice. Look at Lincoln's cheek and jaw on the obverse. These are high points that wear first. On the reverse, check the wheat stalks for completeness and detail. Any significant flatness indicates wear and affects the grade. Storage options for wheat pennies are numerous. You can use coin folders with holes for each date and mint mark. These are inexpensive and display your collection nicely. Alternatively, individual flips or capsules offer better protection. Whatever you choose, avoid PVC and store in a stable, dry environment. The 1945 penny also represents American industrial might. During the war, the mint had to adapt quickly, changing compositions, ramping up production, and dealing with metal shortages. The fact that they managed to produce over 1 billion pennies in 1945 alone is a testament to American manufacturing capability. For history teachers and parents, wheat pennies are excellent educational tools. They're affordable enough to handle and examine, unlike expensive rare coins. Kids can learn about Lincoln, World War II, mint marks, grading, and basic economics. It's hands-on history. If you're building a wheat penny collection, decide on your goal. Are you going for one of each date and mint mark? Just one example from each year. Only high-grade specimens. Your approach affects your budget and timeline. The beauty of wheat pennies is that they're accessible to collectors at all levels. One final note about 1945 pennies. Be aware of counterfeits of the rare varieties and errors. While common date 1945 pennies aren't usually faked, valuable errors and high-grade examples might be. If you're spending significant money, buy from reputable dealers or get coins certified by PCGS or NGC. So there you have it, the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny, made from recycled shell casings, produced during the final year of World War II, and carrying decades of history in its copper composition. For just a few cents, you can own a piece of that remarkable era. The 1953 Canadian penny. You might be thinking, it's just a penny from Canada, how special can it be? Well, 1953 was no ordinary year in Canadian history, and this little bronze coin tells a remarkable story. The year 1953 marks one of the most significant moments in Canadian and Commonwealth history. On February 6, 1952, Princess Elizabeth became Queen Elizabeth II following the death of her father, King George VI. By June 2, 1953, her coronation ceremony took place at Westminster Abbey, watched by millions around the world. So what does this have to do with our penny? Everything. The 1953 Canadian cent was the very first coin to feature the young Queen Elizabeth II's portrait in Canada. After 70 years on the throne, she passed away in 2022. It's incredible to look at this coin and see her youthful image from the very beginning of her historic reign. The portrait on this coin was created by British sculptress Mary Gillick. It shows the Queen in profile, without a crown, which was actually controversial at the time. Some people felt the Queen should be depicted wearing a crown, but Gillick's design emphasized youth and natural beauty. Now let's flip the coin over. The reverse design features two beautiful maple leaves on a single stem. This design was created by G. E. Kruger Gray and had been used since 1937. The maple leaf is Canada's most recognizable symbol, representing unity, tolerance, and peace. But here's where it gets really interesting. There are actually two major varieties of the 1953 Canadian penny, and they can be worth very different amounts. Early in 1953, coins were struck with a portrait that had no shoulder strap on the Queen's gown. This is called the no-shoulder fold, or NSF variety. Collectors noticed this, and partway through the year, the Royal Canadian Mint modified the design to add the shoulder fold detail. The NSF variety is scarcer and more valuable. In average circulated condition, a regular 1953 penny with shoulder fold might be worth 25 cents to $2, but the NSF variety, that could be worth $5 to $20 or more, depending on condition. In mint state, the NSF variety can fetch over $100. How can you tell the difference? Look closely at the Queen's shoulder area on the obverse. If you can see a clear fold or strap detail on her gown at the shoulder, it's the common variety. If that area is smooth with no fold, you've got the more valuable NSF version. The 1953 penny was made of bronze, 98% copper, 1.5% tin, and 0.5% zinc. It weighs 3.24 grams and measures 19.05 millimeters in diameter. Over 67 million were minted that year, which seems like a lot, but remember, most were spent and worn down over the decades. From a historical perspective, 1953 was a pivotal year globally. The Korean War armistice was signed, ending 3 years of conflict. Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay became the first people to successfully summit Mount Everest. Watson and Crick published their discovery of DNA's double helix structure. The world was changing rapidly, and this penny was witness to it all. For Canadian collectors, the 1953 penny holds special significance. It represents the beginning of the Elizabethan era in Canadian coinage, which would last for nearly 70 years. Collecting one coin from each year of Elizabeth's reign has become a popular goal for many numismatists. Here's a collecting tip. If you're interested in Canadian pennies, focus on key dates and varieties. The 1953 NSF, 1955 NSF, and certain other years have special characteristics that make them more valuable. Building a collection doesn't have to be expensive. You can find common-date Canadian pennies for just a few dollars each. One fascinating aspect of Canadian pennies is that they were discontinued in 2012. The Royal Canadian Mint stopped producing them due to rising production costs. It cost 1.6 cents to make each penny, which didn't make economic sense. So any Canadian penny you find now is at least 12 years old, and they're slowly disappearing from circulation. This makes coins like our 1953 penny even more special. Not only is it from the Queen's coronation year, but it's part of a series that no longer exists. Future generations won't have the experience of using pennies in Canada, making these bronze cents true artifacts of a bygone era. Storage is important for these coins too. Bronze can develop unattractive green corrosion if exposed to moisture. Keep your Canadian pennies in a dry environment, ideally in coin flips, albums, or capsules. Never store them in PVC-containing materials, as the chemicals can damage the metal over time. If you're lucky enough to find multiple 1953 pennies, check each one carefully. Mint marks, die varieties, and errors can significantly increase value. For example, some 1953 pennies have slight doubling on certain letters or off-center strikes. These errors are highly sought after by specialists. The 1953 Canadian penny is more than just currency. It's a snapshot of a moment when a young queen began her reign, when Canada was defining its post-war identity, and when the modern Commonwealth was taking shape. For less than the price of a coffee, you can own a piece of that history. And trust me, this one is special. Let me introduce you to the 1861 Indian head penny from the United States. Now, before we dive deep, let's set the scene. It's 1861. The United States is on the brink of the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln has just been inaugurated as the 16th president. And while the nation is tearing itself apart, the U.S. Mint is quietly producing these beautiful copper-nickel cents. The Indian head penny series was designed by James Barton Longacre, the chief engraver of the United States Mint. But here's something fascinating. Despite the name Indian head, the portrait doesn't actually depict a Native American man. It shows Lady Liberty wearing a Native American headdress. This was Longacre's artistic interpretation, blending classical imagery with American symbolism. Now, why is the 1861 specifically valuable? Several reasons. First, 1861 was only the third year of the Indian head penny series, which started in 1859. The mintage was relatively high at over 10 million coins, but remember, this is 163 years ago. Most of these coins have been lost, damaged, or melted down over the decades. Second, the 1861 pennies were struck in copper-nickel, not pure copper. From 1859 to 1864, these cents contained 88% copper and 12% nickel, giving them that distinctive pale appearance. After 1864, the composition changed to bronze, making these early years particularly collectible. Let's talk about what makes a coin valuable. Condition is everything. Numismatists use a grading scale from poor P1 to perfect mint state, MS70. For an 1861 Indian head penny, here's what you can expect. A heavily worn example in good condition might fetch $30 to $50. A very fine specimen with clear details could be worth $80 to $120. And if you're lucky enough to own one in mint state, we're talking several hundred to even $1,000 or more. But how can you tell what condition your coin is in? Look at the details. On the obverse, that's the front side, check if you can clearly see the individual feathers in the headdress. Can you read all the letters in United States of America? Is the date sharp and complete? These are crucial factors. On the reverse side, you'll see a laurel wreath with a shield at the top. Below that is the denomination, 1 cent. The condition of these details determines the grade. Any scratches, dents, or corrosion will significantly reduce the value. Here's a pro tip for collectors. Always handle old coins by their edges. Never touch the faces. The oils from your fingers can cause long-term damage. Store them in proper coin holders or capsules to prevent environmental damage. Now let's address the elephant in the room, counterfeits. Because 1861 Indian head pennies are valuable, fakes do exist. How can you spot them? First, weight and diameter. A genuine coin weighs 4.67 grams and measures 19 millimeters in diameter. Second, the details should be crisp, not mushy or unclear. Third, the color should be consistent with age. Natural patina develops over 160 years. Be suspicious of coins that look too clean or have an artificial appearance. If you think you have a valuable 1861 penny, I strongly recommend getting it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC. These are the two most respected coin grading services in the world. Yes, it costs money, but for a potentially valuable coin, it's worth the investment. A certified, graded coin is much easier to sell and will command a higher price. Let me share something incredible. In 2007, an 1861 Indian head penny in MS66 condition sold for over $1,500 at auction, and the market has only grown since then. Rare coins have become an increasingly popular investment vehicle, often outperforming traditional stocks and bonds. But beyond the monetary value, think about the history. This coin was minted during one of the most turbulent times in American history. Someone might have used this exact penny to buy supplies during the Civil War. It could have passed through the hands of soldiers, merchants, pioneers heading west. Every scratch and mark tells a story spanning more than a century and a half. For history buffs, the 1861 penny connects us directly to that era. Hold it in your hand, and you're touching the same metal that someone touched in Lincoln's time. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. Now, where can you find these coins? Estate sales, antique shops, and coin shows are your best bets. Sometimes people inherit old coin collections and don't realize what they have. I've heard stories of people finding Indian head pennies in old jars, desk drawers, and even walls of old houses during renovations. If you're starting a coin collection, the Indian head penny series is a fantastic choice. Running from 1859 to 1909, it's a manageable set spanning 50 years of American history. You don't need to find perfect specimens. Even well-worn examples are historically significant and affordable for most collectors. Let me give you some context about what was happening in 1861. The Confederate States had just formed. Fort Sumter was attacked in April, marking the beginning of the Civil War. The First Battle of Bull Run shocked the nation in July. Meanwhile, the Pony Express was still running, and the transcontinental telegraph was being completed. This penny existed in that world. Here's something else interesting: the metal composition. During the Civil War, metal was precious. Copper and nickel were needed for the war effort. This is actually why the composition changed in 1864. The government needed to conserve nickel for military use. So these 1861 to 1864 copper-nickel cents represent a specific moment in time before that change. For investors, coins like this offer something stocks and bonds can't: tangible history. You can hold it, display it, and enjoy it while it potentially appreciates in value. Plus, rare coins are portable, don't require maintenance like real estate, and have a global market. If you're serious about collecting, join a local coin club. The American Numismatic Association is a great resource. You'll meet experienced collectors who can help you avoid common mistakes and identify valuable finds. Plus, it's a wonderfully nerdy community in the best possible way. Before we wrap up, let me emphasize: never clean old coins. I can't stress this enough. People think they're helping by polishing a dirty old penny, but you're actually destroying its value. Collectors want original surfaces with natural patina. A cleaned coin can lose 50 to 70% of its value instantly. If your coin is dirty, leave it that way or consult a professional conservator. So there you have it, the 1861 Indian head penny. A piece of Civil War-era Americana that's both historically significant and potentially valuable. Whether you're a collector, investor, or history enthusiast, this coin deserves a place in your collection. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button and subscribe for more coin videos. Drop a comment below. Do you have any old pennies in your collection? What year are they? I'd love to hear about your finds. Next up, we're looking at a 1953 Canadian penny from a very special year. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next one. The 1972 Australian 1 cent. This bronze beauty represents a fascinating chapter in Australian monetary history, and there's more to it than meets the eye. First, let's talk about the design. The obverse features Queen Elizabeth II's portrait. Notice a pattern here with Commonwealth countries. This particular portrait was designed by Arnold Machin and was used on Australian coins from 1966 to 1984. The Queen appears in profile wearing a tiara, looking elegant and regal. But the reverse is where things get uniquely Australian. It features a feathertail glider, one of the world's smallest gliding mammals. This adorable little creature, also called Acrobat's pygmaeus, is native to Australia and weighs less than half an ounce. The designer, Stuart Devlin, chose native Australian animals for the decimal coins to celebrate the country's unique wildlife. Now, why is 1972 significant? Well, Australia only switched to decimal currency in 1966. Before that, they used pounds, shillings, and pence like Britain. The changeover to dollars and cents was a massive undertaking. Imagine trying to retrain an entire nation on a new money system. The 1972 1-cent coin was still relatively new in the decimal era, just 6 years after the switch. These early decimal coins have a special place in Australian numismatic history because they represent that transition period when people were still getting used to the new system. Let's talk composition. The Australian 1-cent coin is made of bronze 97% copper, 2.5% zinc, and 0.5% tin. It weighs 2.6 grams and has a diameter of 17.65 millimeters, making it one of the smaller coins in the series. The edge is plain, unlike some other denominations that have reeded edges. In terms of value, a standard 1972 Australian 1 cent in circulated condition is worth about 50 cents to $2 to collectors. However, if you have one in uncirculated or mint condition, the value increases significantly, potentially $10 to $20 or more. And here's where it gets exciting. Error coins can be worth much, much more. What kind of errors should you look for? Off-center strikes, where the design isn't properly centered on the blank. Double strikes, where the coin was struck twice. Planchet errors, where the metal blank was defective. Some 1972 1-cent coins have been found with significant errors selling for hundreds of dollars. There's also something called a mule error. That's when dies from different denominations or years are accidentally paired together. These are extremely rare and valuable. While I'm not aware of a specific 1972 1-cent mule, it's always worth checking your coins carefully. From a historical perspective, 1972 was an interesting year in Australia. Gough Whitlam became Prime Minister, ending 23 years of Conservative government. The Australian Labor Party implemented major social reforms. Meanwhile, the world was watching the Munich Olympics, dealing with the ongoing Vietnam War, and experiencing the early stages of what would become the 1970s energy crisis. Your 1972 Australian 1-cent coin existed through all of this. It might have bought a small candy, helped pay for a newspaper, or been saved in a child's piggy bank. Each coin has unknown stories behind it. Here's an interesting fact. Australia discontinued the 1-cent and 2-cent coins in 1990. They were withdrawn from circulation in 1992 because, like Canada with their penny, the cost of production exceeded the face value. This means your 1972 coin is part of a defunct denomination, making it a historical artifact. For collectors, this presents an opportunity. Complete sets of Australian 1-cent coins from 1966 to 1990 are relatively affordable and manageable. You're looking at just 25 different years, and most dates are still available at reasonable prices. The 1972 would be a nice addition to such a set. Condition is crucial with these coins. Because they were made of bronze and heavily circulated, many surviving examples show significant wear. Finding specimens with original mint luster and sharp details is challenging, which is why uncirculated examples command premium prices. If you're examining a 1972 Australian 1-cent, look at the feathertail glider's details. Can you see the texture of its fur? Are the tiny claws visible? Check the Queen's portrait. Is her tiara clearly defined? These details indicate a well-preserved specimen. Storage recommendations are similar to other bronze coins. Keep them away from moisture and humidity. Australia's climate can be harsh on coins, so proper storage is essential. Coin albums specifically designed for Australian decimal sets are widely available and recommended. The Stuart Devlin designs on Australian decimal coins are considered some of the most beautiful in modern coinage. Besides the feathertail glider on the 1 cent, other denominations featured the echidna, lyrebird, frilled-neck lizard, and platypus. This celebration of native fauna makes Australian coins particularly appealing to wildlife enthusiasts as well as numismatists. For international collectors, Australian coins offer a fascinating glimpse into a different monetary system and culture. The quality of production from the Royal Australian Mint has always been high, and the coins have distinctive designs that stand out in any collection. One more thing to watch for proof coins. The Royal Australian Mint produced proof sets for collectors, including 1972. These specially struck coins have mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs. A 1972 proof 1 cent is significantly more valuable than a circulation strike, potentially worth $20 to $50 or more depending on condition and packaging. So don't overlook that little Australian 1 cent from 1972. Whether you're building a decimal set, collecting Commonwealth coins, or just appreciate unique wildlife designs, this bronze coin with its adorable feathertail glider deserves a spot in your collection. Wow, we've just traveled through 4 different countries and over a century of history. From the Civil War era 1861 Indian head penny worth potentially hundreds of dollars, to the 1953 Canadian penny marking Queen Elizabeth's first year, the 1972 Australian 1 cent with its adorable feathertail glider, and the 1945 wheat penny made from WWII shell casings. Each of these coins tells an incredible story. The biggest takeaway: that old change sitting in jars or drawers might be worth something. Always check dates, mint marks, and condition before spending or discarding old coins. You never know when you might have a hidden treasure. If you enjoyed this deep dive into coin collecting, smash that like button and subscribe for more videos about rare coins, valuable collectibles, and hidden treasures. Drop a comment below. Which of these 4 coins was your favorite? Do you have any old coins at home? I'd love to hear about your collection. Don't forget to check out my other videos where we explore even more fascinating coins and their stories. Until next time, happy collecting, and remember, always check your change. See you in the next video.